So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jessie Dillow again. I originally was going to have a co-presenter, as you will see on those slides. She ended up getting sick yesterday, so she is not going to be presenting with me. So I'm going to do my best today. Normally she is with me, so some parts I'm going to be a little bit rough around the edges than it normally would be. Also, is this mic on? Can they hear me? Okay, just want to make sure. All right. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more too. This is just a fun kind of way that we introduce ourselves whenever we do presentations. So just give you a little information again. My name is Jessie Dillow. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a young professional with lived experience. So I was solely hired with my lived experience with behavioral health. Depression, anxiety were my diagnosis. My official title is State Level Youth Leadership Coordinator under the TAYLRD 2.0 grant at Kentucky Partnerships for Family and Children. And then just some interesting things. I'm an uncle, a friend, a brother, a son, a dog dad. So in these pictures, you can see my dog Molly. I adopted her 11 years ago now. She was just skin and bones whenever I got her. Now she's very, I would not say fat, but she's definitely living a way better life. Yes. Not necessarily healthy, but better than what she was. Yes. And then this is my niece, Fiona. This is a little bit older picture. She's 2 now. I did not want a little niece at all. I definitely told my sister I wanted a nephew, and if it was a girl, we were pushing her back inside. We're not keeping her, but I decided that I fell in love with her, and I'm actually expecting another one next month. And so then there's a picture of me, my mom, my sister, my brother-in-law, and then my niece, and then pictures of me and my friends as well. And then just some interesting things that I love eating, basically any food. And then I really enjoy cars. You can see I added a picture of my car too. And then playing Animal Crossing or playing the Switch whenever I have time. So the first thing we're going to do to get started is I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes. I passed around this inventory of adult attitudes and behaviors. So everyone will need a pen for this, or the QR code will let you scan it and bring it up on your phone, but it will not let you edit anything. So we're going to take 15 minutes to let you guys fill this out. So just to give you a little bit of information about what this is it's an inventory designed to give adults who interact with young people an opportunity to consider their beliefs, approaches, and the framework from which they work with young people. So it works from the assumption that attitudes are closely related to behavior, and that examining our attitudes, it is possible to make sound decisions about how we can best influence an organization's approach to working with young people. Okay, so there is 25 questions I'll continue to discuss. There's 25 questions that you will answer. There's a scale 1 through 9, 9 being that is most likely, or that is always your approach, 1 being that is never your approach. So I will give you guys like 15 minutes to fill that out. Alrighty, so if you're finishing up, that's fine. Go ahead and finish up. We're going to go over this a little bit later. I like to have people do it though at the beginning now. We've had people do it like towards the end, but once you do it at the beginning and you're starting to think some of those questions, you're starting to see more of like what kind of style you are. If you guys flip back towards one of the last pages, it says style 1, 2, or 3. So you kind of get to figure that out while you're going through the presentation, which style you really are. Okay, so today, hopefully, what you will get by the end of this presentation is you'll be able to define and understand what adultism looks like in action. You'll be able to discuss the consequences of adultism, and then lastly, discuss ways to be an active adult ally and combat adultism. All right. So, does anyone know what the definition of adultism is? Do you raise your hand? Okay. Yeah, what do you think it is? Yeah.
It's like whenever you don't really include children much in on things, or you think that because you're an adult you have more value to society or to the things that are happening around children. And it's most common, people don't think it's adultism, but it's most common in like smaller towns whenever young people should talk to adults a certain way because they're kids.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So really, it is just the assumptions that adults are better than youth, young adults, children, kids, whatever terminology you want to use. And so therefore, they act on behalf of youth without these input, agreement, because they think they know best. So, yeah, that's really the definition. If you would look that up, that is what you would get. So, um, adultism challenges the worth, trustworthiness, compatibility, skills, knowledge, worth ethic, wants, needs, and thoughts and feelings of young people. Like other forms of bias, adultism can happen subconscious or unconsciously as well, and can result in stereotyping. And then adultism is a normalized part of culture, so it can be difficult to reconcile and combat sometimes. So, what adultism is not? So, adultism is not freedom from expectations or consequences regarding behavior or conduct. And then it is also not freedom from any rules, guidelines based on age or development status, especially rules designed for safety and support. Um, so, just as you were talking about like adultism, there's, that ageism. Also, adults think that, they know best. Sometimes youth are the same way. They think they know better than adults. So it's not just a one-way street there. So it doesn't mean just because maybe there is adultism that youth can be disrespectful or have I'm trying to think I think the word is like youthism towards adults too. So, adultism does not live in isolation. So how does adultism intersect with other identities such as race, sexual orientation, gender identification, or disability? So there's this quote here by John Bell. Adultism, racism, sexism, and other isms all reinforce each other. The particular ways young people are treated or mistreated are inseparable from their class, gender, or ethnic background. However, being respected simply because of the youth holds true across diverse backgrounds. Okay. So the relationship of ageism and adultism. So has anyone ever heard of ageism before? Yes. Okay. So ageism is more widely recognized and is culturally unaccepted. However, adultism is a type of ageism we do not often talk about, and this times seems more acceptable. So ageism, prejudice, or discrimination against a particular age group, and especially the elderly. So ageism is to adultism as racism is to white supremacy, and ageism is to adultism as sexism is to monogamy. Okay. So now that we know what adultism is, let's talk about what this looks like. So how does adultism present itself? So there's 3 levels of adultism. There's interpersonal, cultural, and then institutional for the 3 levels. So institutional adultism are laws, rules, and policies that systematically deprive youth of many rights and freedoms. Youth have limited or no say, input, or decision-making power to change those laws, rules, or policies. So can anyone in here think of maybe a law, rule, or policy that youth would have no input or have had no input in making? I mean, I don't think there's any wrong or right answers. Yes. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Guardianship.
Guardianship, yeah. Tax dollars spent, yeah. Does anyone work in like a school setting? Okay, so I'm thinking like, I know whenever I was in middle school and high school that you were only allowed to have so many bathroom breaks for a semester, or there was some rules about like dress code, other ones too, that there was probably not any youth input. It was probably all a bunch of adults sitting at a table making all those decisions instead of getting some input from some young people. So some other examples here are limited access and power in spaces where decisions were made about youth. This includes tokenism and poor engagement, records and materials that are complicated to access or not in common language, rules and regulations designed for compliance rather than safety, and then being paid less for a role that requires specialized expertise or experience, so entry-level positions. Yeah, I'm sure you know a lot of young people probably don't get paid that well. I can tell you, I use my lived experience. I probably get paid more than some young people do, but it's still not the best. Okay, so this is a question for everybody. So what is the difference between policies and rules that are set in place to protect young people and policies and rules in place to oppress young people? And then how could we distinguish between the two? Dress code versus not running in the hallway? So policies or rules, yeah, that to protect versus to oppress.
Is it like kind of like the I was talking about the oppressing online age verification is something that could be in place to protect young people, while things that are like specifically looking for adult participation, but there is a range for younger people to participate, could be something that's more important.
Right. So, like I had said, the bathroom break is really the example that I use here, where those policies were probably made without any youth input. I know that if my school would have asked me, I would have definitely said, yeah, we need more than three bathroom breaks a semester. And depending on how big your school is, one of our schools back home they're basically like a campus setting. So you might have a class over on the science side, and then you have 3 minutes to get on the entire side of the campus to get to your math class. How do you take a bathroom break in between those 3 minutes? So, and then there's other health, issues too, where people might need more restroom breaks than allowed. Okay, so compliance mentality. When rules are designed to create control rather than to create a space of safety and learning, opportunities are missed. A key part of brain development, which is the prefrontal cortex, occurs during adolescence and emerging adulthood. Safe learning spaces where choices lead to natural consequences help to develop critical thinking skills. Compliance-driven spaces can stifle the healthy development of a prefrontal cortex, and it is most important to ask a variety of youth for input when issues arise. This takes intentionality and sometimes is a lot of work. And any of you who work with youth probably know sometimes it is hard to make sure you get input. I know I've been doing this job for 4 years. January will mark 5. And there is still some times where I am a young person, but I am not the same generation that is now growing up. And so things that I think would be great and cool and awesome are probably not the same things that youth nowadays are going to think is cool and awesome. So making sure that I'm intentionally saying, yeah, I know that I'm a young person at this table, but why don't we get some younger people at this table too? Okay. So cultural adultism continued. So cultural norms, morals, and social customs that routinely criticize, validate, insult, intimidate, or disrespect young people. So this could be media conceptions of absolute power by elders over youth, belief that trends in youth culture are leading to destruction, and ability of elders to take on the concerns, opinions, or feelings that young people seriously. It's like some people, you'll understand when you're older, or it's just a phase. Has anyone ever heard an older person say that to you? Yeah, so I'm from a small town. I am part of the LGBTQ plus community. Whenever I came out to my parents, my dad first saying, it's just a phase. So definitely still one of those things where you hear that growing up. Is this just a phase, or you'll understand when you get older? And I've even caught myself saying that to people, you'll understand when you get older, to younger people. And I've got to stop myself from saying that because really that's not a great thing to say to young people. I didn't want anyone to say that to me, so I definitely shouldn't say it to anybody else too. So interpersonal adultism, denying a young person the right to make decisions about their bodies, space, and possessions. Examples, adults demanding a young person obey elders without question. So again, like out of respect, or using the phrases like because I said so, and then the yes, and fear of punishment for asking questions or disagreeing. And I like that comment that you made too, is like that's their space. And I've noticed too a lot of younger kids now are, well, I'd say like younger parents are letting their kids have that choice where like if they do want to hug grandma or grandpa, or if they do want to hug aunt and uncle, it's not forced like, oh, you got to go hug them, you got to go give them kisses. It's letting them choose who they want in their space, who they want touching them, and things like that.
One thing that I've noticed too is no matter what age you are, I still live with my parents right now. It happened during COVID, but I'm moving down here next weekend. And it feels like no matter what age you are, like I'm 24, I've got college education, and I respond with my parents like adults, but my dad, anytime he says something, if I have something to say back, it's immediately disrespect.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Like, it's not trying to have a productive conversation, and especially with young people, it's not like you're trying to have a respectful conversation, it's that you're talking back.
Yeah.
And you're
They call it talk back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was raised that way. And I got an autistic grandson, and he's like very distant. So I have to sit there, and I don't care if it takes a month, but sometimes it does just to get a hug.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful and very heartbreaking, but I can give a breath when I do get it. And that's what you have to respect him. I mean, he's severely autistic, and he's just his way, and we let him be. And occasionally I can ask for a hug and get one, but not always.
Yeah. And I'm sure he appreciates that you're willing to let him have his space too and not force it. So, and I do like the comment that you made too about whenever you do kind of have something to say back, it's seen as an argument or trying to fight. And my dad was the same way. Yeah. Yeah. And that's how my dad was very that way. If there was any time that we wanted to like maybe question, I wouldn't say like question, but like let's see it like at a different lens, then it was being disrespectful instead of just trying to have a communication and trying to see it a different way. But it goes back to like for him it was a generational thing, how he was raised, how his parents were raised, how their parents raised them. So yeah, you just got to break that generational, I wouldn't say it's trauma, but just upbringing. So, all right, so I have a couple more questions for you guys. Have you ever experienced adultism? Everyone says yes. Yeah, okay. What example might have resonated with you that we have talked about so far?
Not sell to easy question for as a couple last year. I think like they told me there was a discount
For couples, yes.
but you didn't unless it was yeah, you did get a discount.
Anyone else? Yes.
I would just say I experienced it by when I was younger. My opinion didn't matter. It didn't matter what I thought or what my feelings were. I was to stay quiet and agree with what their opinion was and what they thought.
I think that it had like with our thinking in regards to like politics and stuff when young people are like protesting, you know, having a different stance than political system, that I feel like this like is very much related to that. Like young people can protest, young people can have the right to do those things, and they're just as valid. So I don't know, that's kind of why that
Well, mine led to me, I'm a mom of 3 kids, and I have a 4-year-old who's very sassy. But because I said something, I noticed that I was doing that to her, and I didn't realize it until she started doing it back to me. And I was like, oh, it's a problem, that's an issue, I need to stop doing that.
I need to actually explain myself, not just say because that's so. I was about to say, I feel like that because you said so. You know what you're saying, but sometimes it's better to clarify.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you say that too because you think, for me at least, I will say that like saying because I said so is because it's easier to say that than to say, okay, let's sit down and let's explain this and let me explain to you why it needs to be done this way or why you shouldn't have done that. It's just a time thing. And how we all know time is very valuable. We're always probably constantly going to have something to do in life. So, yeah. Yeah. To sit down, yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
I was in one of my classes in high school, and the teacher for some reason thought like we're after it was like 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after, during class. So,
Yeah.
like if you know something,
Yeah, it didn't kind of matter at all.
yeah, and I remember my principal walked me to class one day, so I was like, I need to recognition because we got class today. And she walked me to the class and tried to fix it. So, and I was bad, so it's like, having me fix it.
Yes.
So I work in the school system and it is the dominant system of house afterwards. The one thing that I tend to say that frustrates me is the sit down, shut up, and listen mentality in school. You put your kids through classes all day long and give them lunch breaks as interaction time to build social skills. But even during that time, you all need to be quiet, eat your food, and go, and they don't really get that voice because you're sharing with their friends and they're talking to you.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, that makes a good point. I think too, it goes back to some of like how the teachers are too, because we had some teachers who were very like, I wouldn't say like free, but they weren't like, come in, sit down, shut up, do your work, don't look up from the textbook, you know, don't raise your hand, don't question anything, don't talk to anybody else. And there was some though that were very like, there's no talking during work. You come in, you sit down, you listen to the lecture, and then we go on about our day. And then there were some teachers who were more willing about, let's do a lot of group work, so it really just depends on the teacher, but that is a very good point. Yes.
The last thing I'm going to say, I was looking through this and I noticed one thing that it doesn't talk about is how dangerous it can be too. I've noticed a lot of adults lately, but I'm sure it's gone on forever, but they don't take, whenever kids are saying that they're having physical issues into account too, like if they don't have this allergy or this history of this allergy or whatever into account, they don't have it in their history, then their kids aren't going to have it. Why would you say that you feel like that? Why would you say your body feels like that? And it's very dangerous. It can be like, I've heard a lot of stories of teachers or parents not wanting to either let a kid go to the nurse or take a kid to the hospital because, you're not seriously sick. Or if you want to stay home from school because you're sick, you're not really sick, you're just trying to stay home from school.
Yeah, it's kind of like
it can be very physically dangerous and detrimental too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? Yes.
I always I like to experience some abuse and neglect type of thing. And what although it's told because I said so or because or whatever, and it's like you don't know what my body needs. You don't know what my mind needs.
Yeah.
You're not me. You don't have homework 24/7, 365. I'm sorry, you did not relate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a valid point. All right. So now we're going to talk about some consequences of adultism. So now that we know what it is, what it looks like, let's discuss some consequences of it. So young people who experience adultism can often question their own legitimacy. This is because adultism can undermine the value of young people's perspective. Done in sequences over time, this can lead to confusion. So they can also possibly have a hard time with critical thinking because of this, which is back to that compliance mentality. And because of this, The nature of adultism, hold on. This is very small text. Adultism stifles a young person's prefrontal cortex development. The prefrontal cortex is where we are able to use, the logic to solve complex issues, similar to how the brain responds to trauma. A brain that experiences adultism can feel overwhelmed and activate into survival mode early. So some of us who said, like, we always heard that because I said so, or, because I'm your elder or whatever, like, has it ever stopped you from maybe saying something back to somebody or giving your opinion because you kind of already know that's going to be the response? Yeah. So because we experienced that, we have kind of just gone ahead and shut off, where we're not going to say anything back. Yeah. So, and then also, young people could have difficulty speaking up. So, have higher rates of depression, anxiety, and even suicidality. Similar to other forms of oppression, adultism can create or aggravate eating behavioral health challenges as well. And then something can be labeled adultism if it involves a consistent pattern of disrespect and mistreatment that has any or all of the following effects of young people. So undermining of self-confidence or self-esteem, an increasing feeling of powerlessness, increasing sense of worthlessness, a constant experience of not being taken seriously, diminishing ability to function well in the world, increasing in behavioral health challenges, growing negative self-concept, developing health conditions, and then feeling unloved or unwanted. So, why does awareness of adultism matter? So, on an interpersonal level of adultism, it impacts the mental health and well-being, self-agency, and then ability to be a productive citizen. And whenever you think of a productive citizen, what do you guys think of?
The first thought goes to an adult working a job because that's just how I inspired growing up. But it could be, I feel like a productive citizen is also a child because they're doing what they're told to do. They're going to school, they're the teacher, or they're better than the teacher in general. So, like, I guess it's a spectrum. But just a contribution to their own,
Sorry. Yeah, that's really what it means. It's just being a contribution to the society, being themselves, being able to, go to work or be able to go to school, and that they're not, in a depressive state constantly, things like that. To be a productive citizen, kind of what, you would think if somebody's going to work every day, they're kind of have this facade of like nothing's wrong at all. So on a cultural level, youth are inheriting many unprecedented and heavy social, economic, and environmental changes. As major contributors and champions of these issues, it is important for them to be part of solutions. And then on a system level, systemic level, we say things like youth voice is important. We say things like for us, by us, or nothing about us without us. And then we know that programs designated for youth, by youth, are more successful. But with how we do partner with youth when they experiences the impact of adultism. And then adultism itself is so prevalent that it may take time for young people to trust and respond with leadership when being valued as a partner. That is why it is important to stay committed to overcoming any barriers that can get in the way by partnering with youth. Have what? 8 minutes? Okay. So I'm not going to go over all this with you guys. You guys do have this handout. It's 10 practical ways to combat adultism, and it talks about impersonal practice and meetings, and then on the back of it is together with youth. So that's just a resource for you guys to have, because I do have a few minutes left. So when young people are viewed as resources, Not surprisingly, one of the main reasons organizations engage youth in their work is because they are looking for input or the youth perspective. The information is used to get a better understanding of the needs and desires of young people in order to develop more relevant policies and programs. So that would be an example of when young people are just used as resources. Okay, so I really do hate that Stephanie's not here because she goes over this 2-4 with very, very, very well. I am not that great at explaining it to everybody. So this, though, goes off of that inventory that you guys took. So we say 2-4 and with. So 2 young people, 2 is whenever young people are viewed as objects. So this would be the adult is in control with no intention of youth involvement. So there's no youth at the table. There's no youth asked about anything at all. There is no youth involvement allowed in whatever they're working on. 4, you move to young people viewed as recipients. So the adult is in control and allows youth involvement there. So there is some youth involved, but the adult is still in control. And then with is when young people are viewed as resources. So there is an adult, or there's a youth and adult partnership shared control. So there's not a adult over any youth. They're both working together to get a better outcome. So that is the quickest way I can explain that. Okay, so this is also an opportunity for you guys to now talk again, looking at your results. So were you surprised by your results? If so, what surprised you? So whenever you filled out your sheet over here, it should have told you like what style ranked the highest, and that would give you your style 1, 2, or 3. So was anyone surprised by their results? Okay, what surprised you? If you don't care to share.
Oh, that's fine. I was in style 2. I worked with the Sapling Center. I don't think Lakeland has a Sapling. It's TAYLRD's worked with them before for grants, but it's a youth-based drop-in center, and I had a lot of fun with that. But I guess my planning of programs and the things has kind of skewed my vision on that. I thought I would be more of a style 3, but I believe when I look back at it, I was a little confused as to how I get that, and I want to change that thought process so that I'm more of a style 3. But I noticed, I think a lot of my decision making, kids are so eager to be a part of the decision making that when you're asking them, what do you guys think we can do, if you don't give them options, it's all over the place because they're so excited to be a part of it. And I feel like I felt like adults should facilitate and let kids be a large part of it. I would like to change it so that can work in tandem, but in my experience, it's been a little bit hard to give you full control without it going everywhere. So I guess I just need to work a little bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you definitely have a point because with the drop-in centers, there is a lot of youth involvement. That is a big key of the drop-in centers. And it is kind of, there's a lot of times, even I am staff for our statewide youth council in Kentucky. And we will go to our youth council and say, like right now they're planning an event. Hey, what do you guys think about, like what kind of sessions do you want? We don't care. And so then once we go back and say, okay, well, what about like these certain people for this session? We don't care. But you have to like keep getting it smaller and smaller. Sometimes that's just how some youth work. Some will come to you with all kinds of ideas, but some do need that like, okay, here, now pick through this category. Yeah.
3 or 4 options of something that you've already kind of thought about and let them work with that or something.
Absolutely. Yes.
In the programs, so you have different people down. I'm
Yes.
curious to know what you think.
So for TAYLRD, youth and young adults is 16 through 25 is what we consider a youth and young adult, is 16 through 25. So, and I know everybody's is different because there's some that is like 18 to something, then there's some that start at 13 to like 26 or 27, I think, is some of the age ranges. So.
We've kind of done this in our programs for research for and I think all of it, just because of the
Exactly. Very true.
Okay, so I have 2 minutes left. So there is some resources right here for you guys. There is a youth engagement PowerPoint, a couple of them on our website. There's some resources that was in here in the Adultism, some YouTube videos, and then there's a web version of the inventory of adult attitudes and behavior. And then if you want another paper copy, there is that.
Is there any way after we're done that we change this slide?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that is all. I'll let you guys have a minute back to your day, and thank you all.